McGrath comes in, it's on its way, it's there! The miracle on grass!
Owen with a kick to full forward, Cloak, not quite, Blair, Collingwood, back in front.
The seed, he delays the give, Franklin, this is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman! Poor fans can't bear to watch. They led by 28 points at one stage, but the perfect storm has erupted. Oh, who else? McDonald!
For the first time since round 4 of the season, the West Coast Eagles finally found themselves in the win column over another team that's, in fact, hell, they're probably even worse than West Coast, and that is a testament to a new level of suck on the SN Bombers. Tough time to be a fan of them. I'm so sorry, guys. I had a little bit more hope for you guys this year. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I jinxed you. The Western Bulldogs, they are on a surge along with the Collingwood Magpies. So we got a couple teams stepping into the 8, stepping up into flag contention, and the races just keep on getting even better in this last half of the season. And of course, would it really be around the footy if we didn't get to talk about the greatest controversy in the AFL? No, I'm not talking about anything that comes to umpiring. I'm actually talking about to the type of clothing that a team wears that has millions of people up in arms for a reason I really don't understand. Let's bring back the bars. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into our Round 15 breakdown. Of course, I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside by the best in the business, Coach Donnie Hess. Coach, how are we feeling after was honestly a pretty dang good round of footy?
A couple of games fell a little bit short for sure. Surprising. I won't be complaining too much about the Saints falling apart against the Swans. I won't complain too much about that. But in all, a great round of footy. Absolutely fantastic games. I mean let's rippers.
Geelong and Richmond, and then Collingwood, GWS, and Port Adelaide and Gold Coast. That was fun. That was fun. So many great games, controversies, missed calls, communications, all that. This has been a smorgasbord week, and then I don't know if you can tell on this, but I had some technical issues over the last few weeks with my computer, so I have invested in a brand new computer. So if you can tell a difference, if my camera is a little bit better, that is because I am working with some brand new hardware. I'm brand new hardware about this. Let's go.
Hopefully this works a little bit better. So I'm excited, Ross. Let's get right into it.
Yes, sir. Why not? But, ladies and gentlemen, of course, if you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Rumble, Instagram, Twitter, at Fourth and Long Media. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, anywhere else you find your podcasts on. We just broke the 1,100 subscriber mark on YouTube, so do yourself a huge favor. More importantly, do us an even bigger favor, and go ahead and join us for the long haul, because this is going to be a lot of fun. Still plenty of season to go with AFL, so we are going to keep you covered with literally the only things that matter, and which is why we're talking about literally the shirt that someone's going to wear. It's great. Don't you just love dumbing down bigger controversies more than they really need to be? Everything sounds stupid if you put it that way, and that's exactly what I'm here for. Of course, you can find everything over at thefourthlong.com/AFL, or even on thefourthlong.com. You can find why, at least, I don't have to include Donnie in this, but at least me personally, I am a big fan of, maybe I'm a huge fan, actually, of big cocks. And you go find that at thefourthlong.com/apparel. Find out why I'm such a fan of big cocks. I'm probably going to let you on the secret a little bit later in the show. But what we're going to start off with is some of the biggest topics of the round. It's Hess's headlines. Take it away, Coach.
Well, it is hard not to argue that this round gave us plenty of headlines. There are some things that we are going to talk about further on in, but let's just go through some of the main points. I actually have 5 of them this week because there were so many great things to talk about. Melbourne bounced back as Lions buckle under the pressure of the G as the Demons find a way to get a big win over the Lions. And I don't know about you, but I'm not sure whether I'm more on the case of the Lions falling apart and the D's just capitalizing on it, or the D's showing their might and maybe being back to the number one team. I'm still taking it with a little bit of a grain of salt on this one, just a little bit, because I really feel the Lions did not play up to their potential. I don't think that was the best Lions performance you're possibly going to get. So I'm going to grain of salt a little bit. Some of the people going, the D's are back. I'm gonna back page that for just
some
a little
people
bit.
need a little bit more than just a grain. I'm about 80% back on the boat of the D's. We'll see how they fare this round against Adelaide, which, if they lose that, then I am more than ready to be right back off that train. So we're going to see if they can actually put back-to-back wins, especially after the horrible skid that they were just on.
Yeah, 100% agree. Next headline, Cats down Tigers in a spectacular game marred by an ugly event. It's hard not to say this, that the Cats Tigers game was the best game of the round. There's no way to argue it. I don't tell me, as much as I love the Gold Coast Port game, yes, it was 2 points. This was
clearly
the game
Carlton
of the round. This
for
was
you.
absolutely a fantastic game, back and forth the entire time. Absolutely electric crowd. But unfortunately, I'm more worried that the 90% of the communication coming off of this was the controversy with Tom Stewart nipping and hitting Dion Prestia, concussing him, and the ugly scenes that was Dion Prestia after that particular bump, which we'll discuss that a little bit more. I don't want to go too far into that. We'll discuss that a little bit more. So, but it sucks that game is marred a little bit by that ugly event. I jumped to it. Saints
The cool thing, though, real quick, Donnie, is we were asking the question. Well, more importantly, I was asking the question, how you kill a zombie tiger. We found it, and it's by being... So the zombie tiger's weakness is another cat. The more you know. So when we are eventually overran by zombie tigers, because Donnie jinxed us last week, and that's going to be the next apocalypse type event that's going to hit the earth, we know exactly what you want to do. Go find a stray cat, and you guys are going to be perfectly safe.
Jeez. That's just never gonna leave forever. We jump to the next headlines, and I'm not normally a negative headlines, but I have to talk about this. Saints fall out of the 8 after putrid performance versus the Swans. Again, the Swans win a big one in a game that a lot of people expected to be a tight, even contest, a game that would come down to the fourth quarter, and this was anything but. And unfortunately, the questions now are, will the Saints even make the finals? They're out of the 8 right now. They're in horrible form, and they don't get much of an easier test after this round. So
points.
Exactly. So it is not good times in Saints in Saints territory right now. So we'll have to see. I hope they bounce back. They're such a good side that they shouldn't really be where they are, but unfortunately they didn't. We jump to the next one. Carlton stamped their top 4 spot in dominant win over the Fremantle Dockers. Unfortunately, the Dockers team that most Dockers fans did not want to showed up. The team that can't score and's good enough defensively, but just can't score enough to win. And the Carlton Blues, who, I'll raise my hand, I did not expect them to have this type of performance with all of the injuries they've had down back. Really have put themselves in the conversation of flag contenders big time now, because that is an impressive win over a Fremantle team that I think a lot of people were starting to come around on being a flag contender. So I'm very
one of the things here too, Donnie, is at least for me, I will say that I had some questions about Carlton and their legitimacy heading to this round over their last couple performances. I'm not sure. You're kind of there on the boat, but how do you feel? Have they answered all those questions with this win, or is there still a little bit more you're looking for?
The good thing for Carlton is the fact is they are getting some of their guys back. Sounds like Wiedering should be back here in the next week or so. So they may be getting healthy at the right time, just before the finals. Get a few fixtures in before the finals begin, so you're primed and ready come finals time. This. Again, I'm not 100% sure that was kind of like the Brisbane-Melbourne game. I'm not 100% sure that was top-level Fremantle. That was Fremantle of last year that couldn't score. They could play good defense, but they couldn't score. So I'm not sure if this was just a bad performance by Fremantle and Carlton capitalized, or if that was Carlton's dominance that made Fremantle look average compared to what they have the previous 2 rounds. So I'm much more leaning towards Carlton made Fremantle play not as good, because Fremantle has played over in Melbourne a lot better this year than they have previous seasons. So I'm a little more inclined there. But again, that was not the Fremantle I've seen the previous 2 weeks. So maybe they had another off week, I guess. I'm not sure. And then the final headline, and I got to give it 2-point game. Port survived furious game from Red Hot Suns. I went into this game thinking this was an elimination game, thinking whoever loses this game is out of the finals. I'm not 100% sure I'm gonna mark the Suns out, but they come into this round against Collingwood this round, and it's almost a must win, because I don't know if you can go down in another game from the bottom of the 8 and still get in, even with their schedule being relatively winnable. I'm worried another loss could kill their chances of making finals. But again, the Suns just played such great footy. They were right there. Whether or not they deserved a deliberate, we'll have to see. But Port survived. Port keep themselves in that. Port and Gold Coast, I agree. One of them may get in if they win the way that they're playing. But worst case scenario, they are going to shape who makes the 8 and who doesn't.
Absolutely. I am 100% on board on that one. I'm super in agreement with you right there, just because we were both it's probably going to be Port or Gold Coast if either one of them are going to make it in. Both of them still have great chances. And even the thing here is that Gold Coast still has the edge on Port because of percentage points. They're up by about 5 percentage points there. But with the way the Doggies have been looking and with the way Richmond's been looking, they're both a game ahead of the Suns. I don't think anyone else in the top 8 drops out at this point. I am almost sold that the top 6 spots are secured at this point. And it's really maybe still fighting for the last 2. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Suns can pull out. I almost don't want, we were talking about Collingwood too, that Collingwood Gold Coast, that this game might be eliminated for either team as well. So this is, of course, take a look at the game that's going to be happening in round 16. I'm not almost sold on that for Collingwood. If Collingwood loses this, I think they've almost got enough momentum on their side where this is not as big of an issue as we previously thought.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'd love to see both these teams get in. I really would. It's tough. When it comes to the top 6 being set, I'm still a little, I don't know. Collingwood and Sydney are the bottom 2 in the 6th. Collingwood's form in their schedule, I think, makes them a little bit more of a lock than Sydney. Sydney still does have a couple of tough games still left. So I'm not going to say 100% the top 6 are set, but the top 6 looks awfully strong, because if Sydney can get a couple of wins over the next couple of games, it's going to be very difficult to unseat them.
Yep,
for sure.
Yeah. Hey, I love it. Even though that most of the final spots might be solidified at this point, it's looking like we still have a lot of contention with the last few, and especially when it comes to who's actually going to win the damn flag anyway. Still a lot of contention there. But we're going to hop into, with that being said, it's time to overreact to literally everything we've seen over the last week of footy. There's plenty to drop a hot take on, especially when it comes to the Melbourne D's or some other teams around there as well. But what we're going to take a look at is a few teams that are surging, one team that took a big hit, and one guy that might have been screwed over a little bit this round and made the game a lot closer than it needed to be. But of course, for those that don't know how the segment works, I got 3 statements for Coach Johnny. It's up to him to determine whether it is an overreaction or if there's actually some truth behind it. Statement number 1 I got for you this round, Donnie, is that the Doggies are currently the scariest team in the comp.
For me, this is an overreaction, because I think the scariest team is actually one of the teams we just discussed, and that's the Collingwood Magpies. I think
I
the
love
Pies
it.
are the Pies are the scariest team because they have won games that they weren't supposed to. They have won games they're supposed to. They've got a nice little run home. My only worry for Collingwood is will they be battle hardened and tested come finals time? That's the biggest question that I say sometimes when you have a easier run home, is that sometimes you don't get that hardening. You don't get that hardening of your team at the end. So, but the one thing that I also look at is that after this Gold Coast Suns, you've got North Melbourne, Adelaide, and Essendon 3 in a row. So those most likely there's 3 games wins there. But those last 4 are a little bit tougher now. Okay, Port Adelaide, Melbourne Demons, Sydney Swans, Carlton. That's their final 4. So they are going to get a little bit battle tested towards the end. So if
more than a little bit. That's 3 possibly top 4 teams right there.
But the thing though is if you beat the Suns, this week, okay, and then you win the next 3, which right now looking at it, North Melbourne, you're going to be favorites. Adelaide, you're probably going to be favorites. Essendon, you're probably going to be favorites. You win those 4, you go into those last 4 with a little bit of a leeway that you can drop a couple and you're probably not going to fall out of the finals. But you're probably going to have to win at least 1 to make sure you're in the finals, because you can't go into finals 0-4. Port's not going to be easy, but by then, will they still be in contention for the finals? That's the other question that you look at with Port. Melbourne, I still think they'll be fighting for the number 1 seed overall, so I think that's going to be a tough one. Sydney, that could be for 6th or 7th place, depending on who wants to have the home advantage. That's going to be a cracker. And Carlton, Collingwood, the old rivals, are going to get after it, even in the final round of the season. So Collingwood is the scariest team for me because they do have this 4-game gap where they beat Gold Coast. They've got 3 very winnable games. They could go 4 more wins and go into those last 4 games of the season with at least a 2 or 3 game buffer from them and the bottom of and being out of the 8. So that's the one thing I look at and I go, this team is set. And then if they can steal 1 or 2 of those final 4, they go into the finals looking really, really good.
Now, I guess the one thing here, also just not a huge fan of the Doggies. So right now they are, they've won 5 of their last 6. Their only loss in that stretch being to the Geelong Cats in a fairly close matchup, 13 points in that one. And one of the wins that kicked off this winning streak was a big margin over the aforementioned Collingwood Magpies. So maybe this is a different Collingwood team? Is this a Bulldogs team that's surging but not just quite there yet? How are we feeling about the Doggies?
The Doggies I like. My issue that they're running into is that their injury lists are starting to catch up to them a little bit. The teams are already out, so unfortunately we're recording this just before Thursday's game, so this will probably hit. So we'll already, as we're talking about this, the result of tomorrow's game will already be determined. But I don't like the outs for the
Unless
Western
you tune in
Bulldogs.
as soon as we drop it. The best way to do that is by following us on Twitter and Instagram at Fourth and Long Media, or by following us on YouTube and keeping that. Click the bell, turn the icon on. You'll see when we post, because this goes up about 5 hours before the first bounce of the first game of the round when we got these Thursday games. Donnie, thank you for giving me the time, and excuse my interruption because I had to plug.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely no problem. But here's the other reason why I'm not as the Western Bulldogs, if they make the finals, they are going to earn it. Okay, here's their murderer's row to the end of the season. Ready? So they got the Lions tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Sydney, St Kilda, Melbourne, Geelong, Fremantle, GWS, Hawthorn. Shnikes, that's tough. That is tough.
Yep. Yep.
That is basically not a single until you face GWS, you will not face a team outside of 10th. Every 10th and inside, because you're literally 3rd, 6th, 10th, 8th, 2nd, 4th, 14th in GWS is the first time they played somebody outside of the top 10.
You know, one of the bright sides here is that if we're going to see exactly who the Western Bulldogs are, maybe in 3 rounds or less. So we'll need to ask this question because it's going to be answered really, really soon, no matter what the outcome is. My word.
Yep, 100% agree with you. But it's going to be fascinating. But Collingwood right now is the more dangerous team. They have much more momentum. There's much more positivity, and there's so much belief. And the scary part about it is they still have Brody Grundy still to come back. Jordan DeGoey potentially could be back as early as this round. So Collingwood's getting healthier. Western Bulldogs are picking up some injuries and losing some players, unfortunately. So Collingwood,
Yes,
for me, would be the most dangerous team right now, in my opinion, into the finals.
That's a good one. Shout out to all of our big cock lovers out there. I know we like the sound of the Collingwood Magpies being a great team at this moment, only because they have the greatest American player and the greatest American Australian player to ever exist in the history of this fantastic league. Love you, Mason Cox. Go buy our shirt, please. I love you. But statement number 2, Donnie. Fremantle suffered the biggest loss of the round. This is after their drudging against the Carlton Blues, where it looked like we saw the Freo team of, I don't know, maybe the last couple of seasons.
Oh, man, this is one of those, if you go by numbers, no. If you go by numbers, it's Brisbane. Brisbane lost by 64. Yeah. Carlton only beat Freo by 31. When it comes to positive mojo, this is a massive loss for Fremantle because I think a lot of people banked on Carlton's injury issues. They had Fife is back. The team's playing better. The team's got a ton of talent. The team's got a ton of positive momentum. So if you go by kind of mojo, as some would say, yes, that's not an overreaction because this is a debilitating loss that they were probably not expecting. They were expecting, even on the road, to go and beat a weakened Carlton team that was primed for being beaten. So I'm not going to say I'm going to say this is not an overreaction because this was not a result anybody expected. Or if they expected Fremantle to lose, they would expect it to be close because Fremantle usually plays in close games. So it's the margin 31 that I think is the reason why this isn't really an overreaction, in my opinion.
I love that pick. I'm sorry, Flagmantle. Took a little bit of a hit on this one. They're still in the top 4, though, so still plenty of hope for you guys, and I'll keep my fingers crossed as well. But last statement for our overreactions here is that the deliberate rush behind that was assessed to Darcy Moore was the most controversial call of the round.
It was the most If you ask some Swans people, there was another one, but I don't think that.
This is such a loaded statement. I love it.
Here's the thing, though. Both of the huge controversial calls, shall we say, in the game, I don't think this is the most controversial moment. I think the most controversial moment we'll actually talk about a little bit later. Controversial calls, both of them actually went against the teams that actually won. So I'm not inclined to it. How egregious was the error, in my personal opinion? It was big. Because Darcy Moore, he gets punished for the ball hitting him in his leg and then not reviewing to double check that he touched it before it goes over the line. So it wasn't a rushed behind because he touches it before it passes the line to be a rushed behind. The first initial contact for the rush behind.
I had no idea how they made this call.
Well, here's the thing. The reason that they made it is because it says in the rules that if you put the ball through the goalposts outside of the goal square, it is deemed deliberate. Okay? That's technically, I will use the huge air quotes on this one, what was thought to have happened but didn't, because as the replay showed, Moore touches it just before the ball fully goes over the back of the goal line. So it should have been a rushed behind, touched one, no free kick. He gets burned for the intentional or the deliberate, and GWS gets a goal.
It gets punished for playing good defense.
Exactly. So it's like, it made a game that got close late, a little bit closer than it probably should have been. It probably only should have been one. But again, I'm one of those, I'm not hair on fire complaining about the umpires because, again, Collingwood won the game. If that affected the outcome of the game, I see more of the discussion point, because it's the same thing. I've seen some Swans people that are absolutely losing their mind on the protected zone infraction that I think that they called on Errol Golden, but I'm still
To
not
be fair, that was a pretty crappy call. We'll talk about that.
It was an atrocious call because he wasn't even in the protected zone. He was 2 meters outside of it. In fact, if it should have been a 50-meter penalty, it probably should have been on Tom Hickey for moving when being told to stand, because he hears, if you pay attention to it really closely, Hickey takes 2 steps after the umpire yells stand. There's there's like a 3-second pause. That's when you see Goulden run through, like I said, at least 6 meters outside at least a couple meters outside the protected zone. So there's no way it should have been a protected zone situation in the first place. So if that's what he called, he's got to go back to measuring school, because there was no way he was inside the 5 meter there was no way he was inside the protected zone. There's no way. Absolutely impossible. He is not Gumby, so there's no way he was in there. So I don't understand that. I don't understand that call. Again, it didn't matter. Sydney wins by 31. Not a big deal.
Still pretty bad,
I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm going to let it go. But it was just the 2 most controversial calls, really, like I said, didn't amount to anything when it comes to the result. But they were talking.
What about
they were talking points.
What about the call of the Frio game where we saw Nat Fife kick it to imaginary Frio player? I saw that, and I didn't hate on it. I just felt bad because, like, look in the split, in the blink of an eye. Yeah, you see a body down there by the goal. Let's kick it over to him, and then it's
Well, but the controversy in that one with him was when eventually he actually touches the umpire. But if you watch the video, one of his teammates or one of the opponents actually pushes him, and I think the reason that he touches the umpire is to keep from barreling into him. So he didn't get suspended. And I know there were some people like, you can't touch the umpire, and I'm like, well, if you don't want to run into the umpire, I think a gentle touch on the chest to be sure you don't run him over, I think, is acceptable. So, as long
you mean
as
look out for the umpire's health is going to get you in trouble? Crazy call.
I don't know. So yeah. So there was a few talking points again, but I don't understand the hair on fire reactions to a couple of them. So.
Yeah, it was pretty piss poor, but that's also why we watch footy, to see we have to at least get like 3 controversial plays around, otherwise it's not an actual round of footy. But that's going to do it for overreactions. Let us know your thoughts on this one. Let us know, drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit us up over on our socials on your thoughts on any of these overreactions. Are the Doggies the scariest team in the league at this point? Did Frio suffer the biggest loss of the round? And did Darcy Moore get screwed out of his boots? And before we get into what the blank with some fun ones we got for you this round, we're going to jump into some even, possibly, depending on where you guys stand on these situations, some even more fun just due to the controversy and the salt mines that come from these stories, because we're going to jump into first, Donnie, the aforementioned changes to the 10-meter safe zone rule. Just coming off of that, what happened in that St. Kilda and Sydney game, the league has made effective immediately a change to this call, where defenders will not be penalized if both players enter and exit the 10-meter zone, and this is an effort to stop players from intentionally drawing a 50-meter penalty. Donnie, you're obviously, we just got a little bit of your thoughts on the rule itself. That moment in Sydney and St. Kilda was a horrible execution of the rule, and I'm glad that they made this week. Well, another good one that they made.
Let's change it a tiny bit. Is that what the rule actually changes and I've seen this a lot, and unfortunately, it's become a tactic, and it's rather annoying. Is that basically because of the protected zone, what offensive players would drag their defender into the protected zone, come up as close as they could to the man on the mark, and then if they could, split off so then the player can't follow them, so then they have to run through the protected zone to get a 50-meter penalty. The league has adjusted that to where now if that player tries to do that, if the defensive player tries to vacates the protected area as quickly as possible, they will not get a 50-meter penalty. I understand this rule change. Here's the one thing I'm going to say, and I agree with a few people I've heard. I'm tired of the mid-year rule changes. I really am. Like, I understand what you're trying to nip, and I really, really do. Just don't put out a press brief. Just tell the umpires not to call it, and then make it an official rule change next year. Because AFL, I swear, the AFL product, they change rules midweek, and it's annoying because as we've stated so many times this year, the umpires have a hard enough job as it is, and this constant fluctuation of rules and how they're interpreted is really, really frustrating. And it's not just the fans that are. I can almost tell the umpires are even getting a little frustrated because it's hard for them to do their job correctly when you're shooting at a moving target every week. So I don't mind the rule change. I think it's good because it cuts a stupid tactic that a lot of teams have started to do. That's just, it's so cheap.
Yeah.
It's not what the rule is there for. So I don't mind them changing it. But again, I'm one of those, just let it go. If you're going to make a change in the off season. Just don't make a big deal out. Don't make a press release. Just silently tell the umpires not to worry about it, and we'll make the adjustment next year. Try to make it kind of common sense a little bit until they can black and white fix it.
You know, I totally understand where you're coming from here, but at the same point, my whole thing is if there's a problem with the rule, I don't see the reasoning of why we should wait to change it. I am okay with the AFL doing stuff like this where it's an issue, we're going to change it now. And to your point, I kind of understand the whole maybe just tell the umps to do this and the official later, but isn't that essentially the same thing? Just waiting to break the news to the media a little bit later and possibly the players as well. My one thing that I like with this, because maybe it's just because I'm a fan of some other leagues here, especially in America with the NFL and mostly with them. There's a lot of stuff that they're not very what's the word clear. That they're not very I am super visible. You guys kind of know what I mean. They're not upfront with a lot of things. They hide a lot of things. They hide a lot of the rulings. They hide a lot of the reasons behind their calls. So I'm okay with the AFL being upfront with the fans and the players and the media with this. Just being, hey, there's an issue. We're going to try to fix the issue right now, and this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of okay with it in that sense.
Yeah, I've heard there've been a lot of calls about potentially having the ability for umpires to rock up to press conferences and being able to address situations like this. I'm worried that opens
I would love that.
As much as I would love that, I'm worried it would open up a bigger kettle of fish than I really want to deal with. Because one time an umpire is going to be legitimately honest that they believed that their call was correct, and it's just kind of explode on social media and everything like that. It's already a toxic environment sometimes as it is. So as much as I would love that, as much as it would be interesting to get clarification, I'm just worried you're opening up so much drama if you do that. So it's like, that's all. Like I understand. I understand them coming out in a press release. We're looking into it. That's perfectly fine. And I agree. Making a rule change mid-year, if it's an absolute necessary, is great. I'm almost one of those, I don't mind it being a subtle, quiet, behind-the-scenes rule change. And just to see if people pay attention. Because if people start noticing it, then you can come out and say that they've made the change. Because it may be one of those where nobody says anything because it keeps the game going. And we don't have 50-meter penalties that cost teams goals. So I don't know. I just there's no perfect answer to it.
No,
but I 100% understand how you're approaching it. It kind of nips it in the butt now to where you don't have to worry about it.
And before we get into the next subject, the word I was looking for is transparency. Once again, that is transparency, folks. I love it when the word comes to you minutes after you really needed it. That's what we're here for. But let's know your thoughts. Are you okay with the league making changes to rules mid-season? Would you rather that be something that they just do away with? And Let us know, of course, because I don't think there's a question or not whether this is a good or bad change, at least on paper. At least on paper, this is a change that needed to be made, and it's more than likely going to result in something nice in terms of players not abusing the hell of a rule that was made to protect the player that is doing the abusing. So, totally stupid. You kind of just screwed yourself here, so we're going to see what happens. And the next one we want to talk about is probably the most controversial story that is hitting the news cycle at the moment. For who knows why it's so controversial? Only the fans butting heads over it do know, and possibly even the AFL as well. But the Port Adelaide Power has put in an official request with the AFL to wear their heritage prison bar jumpers when they play Adelaide in the showdown in round 23. So first off, why the controversy, and will or should the league allow Port Adelaide to rock these jumpers that look nothing like the Carlton one or the Collingwood ones, unless you are blind and or stupid?
Let's express your opinion without expressing your opinion. For me, I find this whole controversy tedious, ridiculous, and just plain asinine. Personally, yeah. I don't see the controversy. I don't see how this affects Collingwood. They're not playing Collingwood while they're wearing the jumper. Just let them have it. And it, as I've stated online,
who's this hurting?
As I said, it's not hurting anybody. Even it's not like they're playing Collingwood as they're playing Collingwood with the same jumper. So you don't have to worry about jumper clashes. Everybody knows it's Port Adelaide versus Adelaide, so we don't have to worry about any concern of people going, is that Collingwood? No, I know it's Port Adelaide. It's just, it seems like a stance on something that's just so ridiculous that I've just never understood it. And God bless Eddie Maguire for having a way to find the dumbest thing to just get upset about. Like, I don't understand. I don't care what he has to say. It just comes off as petty. It just comes off as childish, and it just comes off ridiculous. Like, I just don't see his point at all. Nobody is going to not buy a Collingwood jumper because they see the prison bars. Nobody's going to get them confused. I don't see how you can think people are so dumb. Like, legitimately, I'm not going to say ignorant. I'm going to say dumb, because that's what you think of people. If you think people are going to get these confused,
tens of thousands of people stupid, essentially.
Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's kind of true. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand it. I mean, some people would say, well, technically, when they became Port Adelaide Power, they had to drop the Magpies, so they're technically two different clubs. Well, you can tell them that all they want, but that's not how they feel. And in this situation, I don't really see the harm in it. That's like telling the Sydney Swans they can't wear the jump red V's because they're not South Melbourne anymore. Well, technically they're still South Melbourne. They're just in Sydney. They just moved up. It's the same club. Port Adelaide is still Port Adelaide. They're just not the Magpies anymore. They're the Power. So I don't understand the argument. I don't see what the harm is. Let them wear the prison bar jumpers for the home games or just both the showdowns, and just let it go. It's not worth the headache, the stress, or the pain in the ass coverage of this controversy.
It's not. Yeah, and even for the AFL as well. If anything, by allowing Port Adelaide to rock the prison bars, they're probably going to make more money when it comes to merchandise sales, because it's not going to take away from Collingwood. It's going to only want to entice more fans to be able to buy those sweet prison bar jumpers, which are real nice, by the way. But even compared to Collingwood, the jumpers don't look similar. It's different kind of bars. It's a different kind of jumper to the top, different kind of look on the bottom. And it's so dumb, and maybe it's just my American perspective for you guys, but there's plenty of teams in the NFL that have really similar colors and even pretty similar uniforms as well. But when the Broncos, who rock blue and orange, play the Bears that rock blue and orange, I am not having a problem telling which one's which, because their uniforms look different. And so you got to be a little bit dumb on this one, a little bit slow, or just a stickler as hell for Well, I can't even call them a stickler for tradition because technically tradition is the prison bar jumpers for Port Adelaide. So those guys who can't even rock this boat too. It's all signs point to bring back the prison bars, and Donnie, is the league going to even let them?
I'm hoping Gil gets his cojones back, and he does. I'm just really worried that they are so...
One more year, Gil. Make a move.
They're so worried about offending poor old Collingwood that they're not going to let them. I really want them to. I have a couple of Port Adelaide mates, and I've said I think the prison bar jumpers are fantastic. I think they're worth wearing at least once a year. I just don't see why they can't. But again, like I said, I'm really hoping the AFL lets them, because I don't see the problem with letting them.
No, it would be quite the move. And what do you guys think? Is the AFL going to let them bring it back? Are they not? And should they even in the first place? We all know, shout out to our friends over at The Creed, Port Adelaide fans that have their own show. They are fully behind bringing back the prison bars and fully jumping on anyone that has any sort of trash to say. And I am loving it. Their Twitter the last couple days has been highly entertaining. So go ahead and give them a follow as well. I think it's _at _the Creed over on Twitter. It's fun stuff what we got there. But with that controversy out the way, let's hop into even more controversy, even things that you can't find controversy in. People will still do their damnedest to be just way too worried and wrapped up into some of these things going on in the league, because it's time for what the blank, between saying what the blank to what Nat 5 was thinking when he kicked the ball to the umpire, and also between saying what the blank when the league is discriminating against Port Adelaide in their heritage and not letting them bring back the prison bar jumpers. It's time to say what the blank in this segment as well. For those that don't know how this works, I got 3 statements for Coach Johnny, and there's a blank in either the beginning, the middle, or the end. And it's up to him to fill in the blank with whatever he so chooses. So it's time to say what the blank with Coach Donnie. And starting us off first, Tom Stewart deserves a blank game suspension for his hit on Dion Prestia.
Prestia, and he got 4 games. That's come down. There's no way Geelong is going to fight this. I think that was what I call. That was what most people after I saw it. And what I told most people online was I 4 games was where I was expecting it.
Yeah.
Could he probably have deserved more? I mean, there's always a thought process that you might want to just eventually just lay the complete hammer down on somebody, and maybe it put the fear of God of these guys to stop being flogs and continuing to hit each other in the head and causing each other concussions. But I think 4 is perfect. I think the 4 games that he got was exactly what I kind of thought he would get. So 4 games would be my answer, and 4 games is what he got.
Look, the AFL actually making a good decision when it comes to suspension. We all know that sometimes they have a problem that the NFL runs into a lot, where it feels like, especially as a fan, what the NFL does when they have a suspension that they're trying to give someone, they got a big old wheel and they just kind of spin it and see where it lands on. It seems like the AFL actually has a system put in place that is literally just not a spinning wheel with numbers on it. Good job, guys. You're not morons and not completely inept at your job. But statement number 2, between Collingwood and Geelong, blank will lose first. These are 2 teams riding 5-game winning streaks, looking great as ever as they have this season. And before I answer this, let's just take a look at Collingwood's schedule for you as well, just in case for you or the viewers want to see what they're coming up. The next 4 games will be between Gold Coast, North Melbourne, this for Collingwood, Adelaide, and Essendon, with Port Adelaide there. But Geelong, on the other hand, their upcoming schedule is looking like North, Melbourne, Carlton, Port, and the Doggies. So, Donnie, who loses first?
If you look at it, and I think it kind of depends on who you're going to ask on this a little bit too. Honestly, I think the Cats have more difficult games in the next 4 than Collingwood is kind of one of those. Does Collingwood lose this week? If they lose this week, then they'll be the first, because there's no way the Cats are losing to North Melbourne. If they do, that would be a tremendous surprise to a lot of people.
We got some fun numbers to take a look at when we get to our tips when it comes to this game.
Is it possible Collingwood could lose to Gold Coast? Yes. Do I see it happening? You'll have to wait for the tips to find out on that one. But honestly, and this might give away my tip as well. I think Geelong's the first one to lose. I just think their schedule is a little more hectic. They've got a few more tougher teams in this next 4. And I think if Geelong loses the game, it's probably going to be in that first 4 where I think Collingwood has got a lot more negotiable schedule in the next 4. So I'm going to say the Cats in this one, but this is the caveat that Collingwood beats Gold Coast this week.
Ooh, I like it. And then, I guess technically, if even assuming they both lose this round, we can get to technicality because they start at exactly the same time on the same date. Whoever has the quickest game might be able to bring our answer because, of course, North is going to upset Geelong in this round. Why wouldn't you tip that? You'd be dumb to not to. And is that a insight into what my bold tip of the round is? Of course not. I'm bold, but I'm not stupid. But I am looking forward just to see. Hopefully, Donnie, you know what I like to say? Fingers crossed for chaos, and that would certainly be that would certainly be the case if the Roos somehow beat the Cats. But the last statement and the last thing we're going to do, take a look at round 15 before we officially move on to round 16, is the real winner or winners of round 15 or blank.
Oh, this one's difficult because I'm just looking through it and there's so many big but honestly, I'd have to say the Cats because that was a stiff test by a Richmond team that I think a lot of people are starting to kind of jump on the bandwagon of. A lot of people in the ether of Richmond have kind of got to this point where they're literally sitting there going, this is the Richmond of old. This is the Richmond that's won 3 flags, that had a chance for 4 and just fell short in 18. This is the Richmond team that I think everybody expected over the last couple of seasons that they didn't kind of get the last year. So for Geelong to go to the G, beat Richmond at the G, which is not easy to do because Richmond plays that ground so well, that's massive.
Yes, technically their home game.
Exactly. Which we won't get into that controversy that I know Craig Wessels, the Yank on the Footy, is a huge Cats fan, and we were going back and forth about that joke about how well we were going back and forth how I've said it numerous times, and I said I understand the AFL wants to make money. I really do. I understand how the AFL wants to make money, but punishing a team by making them play a home game on another team's home ground, where the other team's home fans can come see them play on a road game at their home ground, is a disadvantage, in my personal opinion. That everybody's like, oh, the integrity. Well, in my personal opinion, the integrity's shot every time Geelong has to host a game against Collingwood, Melbourne, Richmond, or any of the teams that play in the MCG and they have to host a home game in the MCG. That is an integrity problem for me. Let them play at GMHBA. Be damned if 30,000 can't go. You know what? There's tons of people over here in the States that don't get to go to every single game because there's a limitation. It happens. Geelong's trying to build
You know what? They probably want to show up anyway, given that
Geelong's trying to build the bigger stadium. They're trying to get capacity higher. But
there's construction going on right now,
which will
well, maybe not as we speak. It's still a little bit early in the morning for. Well, no, actually, no. They probably got construction's early enough.
7:50 now is about 10 a.m. So they're probably on the job. They're probably on the job. So they just don't have to worry about footies being kicked at them.
I don't got my time zones down as best as I can at this point.
Too many times having to interview people in Melbourne. So this is kind of that perfect time. This is kind of that perfect time in the morning.
Perfect.
No, I get tired of this integrity crap. For me, it's bull. Let Geelong play at GMHBA every single game that they possibly can, that they have at home, and be damned with it. I mean, Financially, I think they're going to be okay. They're going to get enough games where they're going to make money. I just stop. And so, I don't know. So Geelong getting that game over Richmond, in my personal opinion, was the biggest win because that was a glorified road game.
Mm-hmm. And with that being said, the Cats have saved us from a zombie cat apocalypse. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Everyone, go show some love to the Cats as they might even be taking over in some people's opinions. They might have just taken over the spot as flag favorites currently. So a big spot for them to be in, and certainly going to be excited to see how they are able to close out their season because that number one spot. Definitely not out of the question at this point. We just got to see pretty much what kind of Melbourne team we're going to get over the next few rounds. But with that being said, that's going to round us off for What the Blank. Of course, please let us know your thoughts. Does Tom Stewart deserve more or less punishment for his hit? Who's going to lose first between Collingwood and Geelong? And who was the real winner around 15? Could be a player, could be a coach, could be a club itself. Who was the real winner from this last round? But with that being said, let's turn our attention to round 16 because things are going to get a little bit crazy in this one, especially with some of the possible outcomes from these games. It's time to get into our official tips for round 16. And the game that's going to be starting us all off is going to be a fairly interesting one against Brisbane and the Doggies. In fact, it might have been a little bit more interesting a couple days ago, given how the lists have shaken out for either team. But with this is an interesting one, Tip Donnie, because of course the Doggies going through their injuries troubles, and Brisbane is getting some key players back. One team is riding a hot streak, the other one just suffered a massive loss and to the hands of the Demons. I am okay, obviously, with Brisbane being the favorite among betting odds and tipsters, but I wasn't expecting a 91% side to the Lions in this one.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that a little bit too, but then I think the reason that some of it has changed is because some of the teams have already been announced, and some of the outs for Western Bulldogs are big. English is not back. Caleb Daniels is now out, which is a huge mover of the footy off the half-back line. So there's some big outs there, and it sounds like Zorko should be back. It sounds like Bailey should be back. They'd both be out of health and safety protocols issues. So Brisbane is kind of pretty much back to full strength now, which they weren't against the Melbourne Demons. So that's why I'm not as shocked about the change. I think the Doggies are strong. I think they're still in this. But I think, honestly, if I'm the Brisbane Lions, this is your chance to put a statement game together against the team that kind of embarrassed you, that kind of got you last year on your home ground last year to get to the grand final. So this is the Lions' chance. This is the Lions' chance to kind of put themselves back into that conversation of flag contender. You hand a whooping to this Doggies team, and you're right back in the talk for the flag.
Are they going to do it?
I think this is a tough game. I think the Lions edge this, but I don't think this is not a whooping. I mean, even without English, even without Caleb Daniels, there's still some danger there. I think Naughton is never an easy matchup. Most likely Andrews will get that matchup. Does Yamaro Ugle-Hagan step up and play big? Unfortunately, Josh Bruce, who we thought was going to come back, had a little bit of a setback, so he'll be probably another couple weeks. They do get Lachie Hunter back, which is not a perfect sub for Caleb Daniels, but it does bring some more depth to that midfield. So we'll have to see, does somebody shift back in that situation? We'll have to see on that. I just think the Lions have better ins compared to the Dogs having better outs. That's, I think, there. So I'm tipping Brisbane, but I think this is going to be a cracker.
And given the criteria that we got and that we're taking a look at right now, with how heavily favored they are on both the betting odds and the Brisbane Lions, of course, in my almighty rulebook that switches anytime it benefits me. It's my show. I can do what I want, damn it. This is qualifying as my bold tip of the round. Starting us off, I'm going with the Western Bulldogs on this one. And most importantly, because there's not really another team that I feel comfortable betting on when it comes to trying to find the bold one. There's certainly some more bold picks I can make, but when it comes to being realistic, like, I'm a few games back in our tipping competition. I'm really not trying to get screwed over too much. But Let's start things
That was
off
honest.
bold.
That was honesty personified, sir. That was classic.
I am the one thing I am with you. If I am anything to you guys, it is the word of the day: transparent. And one thing that is also transparent is how bad the St. Kilda Saints have been recently. They take on the Carlton Blues at Marvel Stadium. How's that for a transition? And Carlton is being tipped at 91% according to the AFL website, and they are about $1 of a betting favorite. And I could see this being a close game, of course. But given the way St. Kilda's looked recently, ain't no way I'm tipping them in this one.
St. Kilda's horrible form in Carlton, hotter than a firecracker. I've got Carlton, but I think a couple of for St. Kilda may give St. Kilda a little bit of a good boost here. Getting Paddy Ryder and Brad Hill both back for this game, I think are going to be nice additions. Mm-hmm. Do they get St. Kilda over their horrible form? I don't think so, but I think this game is much closer. This is a game. If I'm Carlton, this is a trap game for me, because this is a game everybody has now jumped on your bandwagon and has said, well, you're going to beat the Saints. You should beat the Saints. The Saints aren't playing well. This is a game that is scary. If I'm a Carlton fan, this is a scary game, because this is the Saints. They're back against the wall. They have to win if they want to stay in finals contention. So this is a dangerous opponent. Carlton win this, but I think the Saints keep this. I think the Saints get their what together, and I think they make this a much closer game. I think some people are thinking.
I'm on you with this one. Trap game, absolutely. It should be a game within a few goals, is kind of what I'm thinking here. But man, Carlton better win this one if they really want to keep their hopes up for the top four. And speaking about keeping their hopes up in finals positions, if the Swans lose to the team that just lost to the West Coast Eagles, Don, I'm going to have a lot of questions for you next week. So I'm obviously going to tip Sydney over this one because they really better not lose to Essendon.
Oh, this is another one where
you think a trap game?
This could be a trap game. I'm thinking.
Are you thinking that as a Sydney fan or as the coach?
My coaching brain is definitely the one that's telling me this. Again, I'm also a pessimist sometimes when it comes to it, because, well, again, Sydney has had some games against teams of lower quality that they have not played well. So I'm going off form a little bit, and I'm going off previous situations. I think Sydney wins this, donning my Sydney Swans hat. I think they can win this big if they get going, because Essendon's mojo is not. Essendon is not playing well. The biggest question, and I've seen this a couple of times, is do the Bombers kind of get the gumption to try to go after Luke Parker after Parker embarrassed Dylan Shield at the SCG a few weeks ago?
He got that Exxon's back this round, doesn't he?
I don't see it, because I think it's a ridiculous point. I think it needs to be moved on, because I don't really see how that's going to help Essendon. So personally, I don't think it should be done. Unfortunately, I don't know how people are going to handle it. We'll have to see. I think Sydney wins this. I think Essendon's competitive, but I think Sydney has just a little too much late. I don't think this is a massive win, but I think it could be at least 4 or 5 goals.
That'd be a great move for the Sydney if they can just look strong against a poor opponent. At the least, though. With this next one, I mean, Melbourne better be all the way back if they want to beat a team as prestigious and as dominant as the Adelaide Crows. Who am I kidding? I got Melbourne in this one. They better not lose to the Crows. Otherwise, they just answered a lot of questions. If this is even, I think if this is even a close game, like a 2-goal game, there's still going to be questions that arise on terms of Melbourne's form.
Adelaide is a team that, honestly, when they play their best footy, can be competitive against most teams. But Melbourne is not. Melbourne is not most teams. I think Melbourne wins this, but I'm not gonna fully poo-poo on the Crows because they're at home. And we know what happened last year when Melbourne came in undefeated. The Crows knocked them off. You just never know. Adelaide Oval sometimes can be a place that can be quite difficult to go. I think Melbourne wins this one, but I think it is more competitive than some people think. But this is your tester. Can the D's put up a big number? Because if they can put up a big number, I'm going to start leaning more towards their back. If they stay with the Crows and the Crows stay with them, the questions maybe start to go, are the D's legit, or are there still some issues? So I'm going to gauge this one Melbourne, but I think it's closer than some think.
Speaking about putting up big numbers, let's take a look at this next game. Not only for what I'm expecting the win margin to be for the Geelong Cats, but also just taking a look at the tipping and the betting odds. Right now, North is at $19 underdogs, just barely avoiding that $20 mark, unfortunately. But one thing I have never seen before, Donnie, I've seen 2%, I've seen 1% of people tipping a certain team. I have never seen, at least on the AFL website, 100% to 0% tipster odds. But now I have, because at least, like I said, according to the AFL tipping site, Geelong Cats are being tipped at a 100% rate over the North Melbourne Roos. And if that doesn't tell you the position that either team is in, I don't know what will. Donnie, I am not tipping North in this one. I am going to tip the Cats in the game that really should not be close at all.
I'm going to tip the Cats. I'm going to tip the Cats and tip them big. On my tipping thing, they at least got 1%. So there's somebody.
Throwing them a bone. ESPN throwing them a bone.
Throwing it out there. I got to give them the gumption a little bit on that one. I'm not gonna
gumption
waste a lot of words on this one. Cats and Cats big.
There we go. That's all we need. Now, the one game I am really interested in this round, especially when it came to tipping, is Gold Coast and Collingwood. If maybe we saw this, we got this game a round ago before what we saw the recent results from round 15, I would have the even harder time. I am feeling very strong in Collingwood's current form. But this is definitely a game that the Gold Coast Suns can take. It's going to be a very close game. I think this is going to be a very good game as well. I'll tip Collingwood, but watch out for Gold Coast.
I think this is going to be a fantastic game. This has all the mixings and the fixins to be...
All the marbles, Donnie.
This is
all the marbles, especially for Gold Coast.
This has got all the storylines to potentially be game of the round, legitimately. I'm a little surprised the tipping is as far-fetched as it is. I mean... At least on mine, it's 63-37, which I think is a bigger...
I got 56 on mine, which is reasonable.
I'm much more apt to go to yours on 56 because I think this is much more of a coin toss game I think some people want to give credit to. I think Collingwood's form over the last few rounds, I think, is the reason why so many people are tipping the Pies in this one. I'm going to tip the Pies, but I'm going to say it right now. This will not shock me if the Suns win this. This is up in Metricon, so it's going to be slick. It's going to be slippery. So can Collingwood continue the pressure and continue how they've played times before? This is going to be a humdinger. I can't wait to watch this one. I think this is going to be such a great game of football. But this is Gold Coast shot. If they want to make the finals, this is a scalp they need. And if they get it, who knows? Oh, it's a massive scalp at this point.
This could be a very big scalp for the Suns, man. In the game that going for a game that's probably going to be game of the round. This one isn't. Richmond and West Coast. Richmond probably by big.
I'm not as much on that train anymore because of some of the additions. I wish I knew the teams because there's talk Nick Nat might be back, which I think is massive for the Eagles. But that's about where I'm going to end it. I think Richmond still wins this because, again, West Coast does not travel well. Though this is a game that is going to be at the MCG, I think the Eagles are competitive. I think the Eagles are in it. I just think Richmond has too much, and being at home, I think, is much more an advantage. Richmond, but this is close. I think this is 2 goals max. I think the Eagles are in this because this is more the Eagles I thought we would have. Yes, they beat Essendon, so there's a little bit of grain of salt you could take. But I liked how they were playing, and I think there's a lot of confidence now in this group. And if they get Nick Nat back, that's a game changer. So,
Fair enough. I just love how Richmond pushed a team like the Geelong Cats. I think I almost said Jollingwood. Wow, that would be quite the matchup of a team.
That's gold.
Damn it. Oh, man, that would have been funny if I actually said it, but it's out of context, so you know what that means. It technically doesn't count. The next game we got here is GWS Giants taking on the Hawthorn Hawks at Giant Stadium. I think this is going to be a pretty close game. One of the few times I am actually tipping GWS in this one. So hopefully they can prove me right, get their 5th win of the season, and make me a little bit happy in my heart.
I have the Giants. I think the Giants played that game, this last game, really, really well. I think they started playing very, very good footy. I think they're starting to kind of find what they could look at over the next few years. Hawthorn, they're still in that developmental stage. I still think there's a few things that they're still trying to kind of get fixed. They're kind of slowly changing the guard in the midfield, and I think it's affecting a few things, but I think in the long run it's going to end out being more beneficial. I'm going to have the Giants in this one at home. But the Hawks are competitive, so this isn't one of those runaways. I think this is going to be another good game of football.
No. And definitely can't be a runaway when the GWS Giants are playing. No matter what, it always seems like it's going to be a close game when it's against teams that they should beat. And then for this last game, I am really, really interested in this last game based on what both teams need to see right now and based off their performances in round 15. We got the Freo Dockers take on Port Adelaide at Optus. Now, maybe at Optus is the only thing that could justify this, but I am pretty surprised. This is another game I'm pretty surprised by the tipping percentages because on the AFL website, it's 91% for Freo. I was expecting this to be a bit closer, maybe in a 60 to 70 percentage point range. I am going to tip Freo in this one. I think they jump back at Optus. But, man, this is going to be a really close game, and I think if anything is going to upset Collingwood and Gold Coast for game of the round, it's going to be this one.
This is going to be a cracker, and this is another – I 100% agree with you. Where is this game being played? Is this being played at Freo or is this being played at Port Adelaide?
Right.
Because it does.
The question for any Freo game.
The tip especially for Fremantle. I think Fremantle kind of – they got the reality check from Carlton. I think their defensive structure will give Port Adelaide some headaches a little bit. I think Darcy is going to have a field day at the rock spot. I'm going to go with Fremantle, but this is another one. I have this feeling this could be a round that is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be a ton of blowouts or it's going to be a ton of crackers that come down late. And I would love for them all to come down late because that just makes our conversation next week that much better. So I'm cheering for this to really, really happen. That I'm hoping, really, really hoping that that this comes down to the end. I'm going to tip Fremantle in this one, but I will not be shocked if Port can find a way to get a win because Port is playing much better footy. Will the loss of Riley Bonner be interesting since he has that facial fracture? He'll be out for a few weeks. So that's a loss on the back line that will be interesting to see how Port handles that loss in the back line.
Well, you guys already know what I'm hoping for this round. Fingers crossed for chaos. But for Donnie's sake, one thing I will want to root for him as well is I'll give him a fingers crossed for crackers. So we'll throw him a hashtag there as well. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it for our round 15 breakdown. Thank you so much for tuning in, especially if you're listening to these words right now, because that more than likely means you watched or / listen, wherever platform you guys get this on, to the end, and I greatly appreciate that. A couple things I want to shout out is, of course, subscribe to us if you haven't already. Follow us so you can stay up to date with all of our happenings. You can catch us on Twitter and Instagram at Fourth Lawn Media. For Coach John, you can follow him at Coach Hess40 on both platforms as well. He's actually started to post a little bit. I will not take credit for that, even though I might want to.
Actually, speaking of that post, we will have my team of the week up as early as tomorrow. As we saw, we got the power rankings out. I'm going to start posting my power rankings on my Instagram, and hopefully we'll remember this time to put them on Twitter this time. I forgot to put them on Twitter this time, but I think next week I will make sure.
I'll forgive you. You're still stepping into this whole social media
I'm
thing.
learning.
It's a lot.
I'm definitely learning. It's not my specialty as it is our beloved host here.
I love your hashtag game on Twitter.
I gotta give my wife a lot of credit for. She's on me. She's like, if you're gonna hashtag a lot, she's like, you can do 30 hashtags, so do it. I'm like, oh boy.
Oh, that's what I do on every Instagram post. Everything it's going to hit the 30 hashtag point because, if Instagram is going to let me try to spread as far as I can, I'm going to do that. Speaking of which, we're almost at 1,000 followers on Instagram as well. So go ahead, make sure, if you are not following already, go ahead and be a part of the squad that gets us that much closer. That will be awesome. But with that being said, you can check out some recent things that have come out. Donnie's pumping on some amazing interviews with former AFL legends, journos, AFLW players, and we got some even better stuff coming up as time goes on. So go ahead, please check those ones out as well. Once you're done tuning into this, you can catch them. Those will be, at least on YouTube, those will be both the interviews and the Donnie's Disposal folders or a playlist. So go ahead and find them all in the one spot. Check him out there because he's been absolutely crushing it. But Donnie, with that being said, your thoughts in one word or phrase on the best crackers.
Oh my God, the best cracker. Are we talking the snack cracker or are we talking?
Don't you dare say saltines.
I wasn't gonna say saltines. Let's see. If honestly right now I'm really into Cheez-Its. I love Cheez-Its. They're really good for me at work. But
do you like the basic? Because I really like their fancy flavors, almost like the zesty one.
I'm boring. I like the original.
I wouldn't call you boring. I call you.
Yeah, you could say that. But I'm also quite partial. Sometimes when I'm feeling a little less cheesy, I'm feeling Wheat Thins. So or my other go-tos. So.
Wheat Thins are a great cracker that I have not had in a while.
Chicken and a
there's always one I always
one. So there's too many good ones.
It's about the peanut butter crackers.
Cheese,
the ones with the peanut butter in between.
The orange peanut butter crackers.
Yep.
Those are freaking awesome.
Yes, those ones are probably horrible for you and have everything about them is probably fake, but they taste good.
It's like a lot of things, unfortunately, that we digest. Unfortunately, it's not all of it is great for you. So.
Yeah. Make your own crackers, guys. Go get a nice thing of sourdough starter. Make your own sourdough. Let that dry out and make your own crackers so we can all be healthy together. So we can watch even more years of footy. But like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know your favorite cracker. And with that being said, we will see all of you after